Hello and welcome to Inside the Rock with Connor C. Today we'll be talking about the Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters are a band born out of the drummer of Nirvana, the great Dave Grohl. Dave started the band after the death of lead singer Kurt Cobain. Initially, Dave had scheduled recording time and recorded a 15-track demo. This demo was released under the name Foo Fighters based on the name given to UFOs in World War II. Grohl recorded all of the instruments with the exception of a guitar part on X-Static. This 15-track EP created some talk amongst record companies. This was when Grohl decided to make his side project official, turning initially to ex-bandmate Chris Novoselic to play bass. For Chris and I, it would have felt really great and natural, Grohl explained, but for everyone else it just would have been weird and left me in a really bad position. Then I really would have been under the microscope. With the Nirvana reformation rumors threatening to attack Grohl should Novoselic join his project, they mutually agreed to move apart and go separate ways. Grohl turned to the recently disbanded Sunny Day Real Estate to recruit bassist Nate Mendel and drummer Will Goldsmith. Here's a song from those guys, In Circles, by Sunny Day Real Estate. Soon after, Dave was in contact with touring guitarist Pat Smear, who had worked with Nirvana during the tour supporting the album In Utero. Pat accepted the offer to join, and thus the Foo Fighters were complete. In June of 1995, the first single, This Is a Call, was released to the general public. The song's peak position was in the top 10 in Australia, the UK, and the US, and peaked at number 1 in Canada's alternative charts. They played their first show at a little bar in Portland in 1995. Here is This Is a Call by the Foo Fighters. When the Foo Fighters released their self-titled album in July of '95 under Capitol Records, they gained major success quickly. On August 14th, '95, they played on The Late Show with David Letterman, and they had a second single issued September 4th of the same year. For All the Crows and Big Me were also soon released off of that album. I suggest watching the video for Big Me because seeing Dave Grohl with hair like that in the video is just worth it. The Foo Fighters followed up their new album with a tour that went straight through till July of '96, including 15 festivals. After a successful 2 years, the band re-entered the recording studio to begin pumping out The Color and the Shape. Now there were some complications with releasing the album as well. Grohl decided to re-record the drum parts to the entire album because he wasn't comfortable with Goldsmith's playing. Goldsmith, however, didn't approve of Grohl taking over his position and decided to part ways. In the end, Dave wrote all the drum parts and released the album as the drummer, rhythm guitarist, and vocalist. After Goldsmith left, Dave looks back and regrets, saying, "There were a lot of reasons it didn't work out, but there was also part of me that was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm finished playing the drums yet." He would also go on to state that, "I wish I would have handled things a little differently." The first single from the album was released on April 28, 1997. The title of that song was Monkey Wrench. Before the album was ready to be released in May of '97, Dave wasted little time finding a replacement for Goldsmith. He quickly ran across Taylor Hawkins, who was, at the time and still currently is, an accomplished studio/touring drummer. He is known for his recordings with bands such as Alanis Morissette, Slash, and a personal favorite of mine, Coheed and Cambria. During this time, Pat Smear expressed his unhappiness in his position with the Foo Fighters and discussed a departure with Grohl, promising that there would be a replacement before he left. Pat was around for the release of the second single off of the album, Everlong, but in September of '97, during a performance atop Radio City Music Hall in NYC, Pat announced his replacement, Franz Stahl. Stahl finished the tour with the Foo Fighters and was involved in the release of the next two singles, My Hero and Walking After You. That was My Hero, the third single off of that second album. After a long year or so of touring, the band jumped back into the studio to begin recording There Is Nothing Left to Lose. But yet again, there was unsettlement in the lineup. In an interview with Kerrang, Grohl said, "In those few weeks it just seemed like the three of us were moving one direction and Franz wasn't." This was a difficult move, especially for Grohl, who had been longtime friends with Stahl. But in the end, it had to be done, and Stahl was removed from the band. Not long after, more disaster, as Mendel was offered a position in the reformation of Sunny Day Real Estate and decided to leave the Foo Fighters to rejoin his former band. Grohl, angered by this, told Mendel, "You can tell the guys why you're leaving. I'm gonna go get drunk." The guilt of the conversation caused Mendel to remain in the band, maintaining status among both the Foo Fighters and Sunny Day Real Estate. After the debacle, the band entered Dave's newly established in-home studio, also known as 606 Studios in Virginia. There were literally sleeping bags in the walls, is what Dave said about his new recording studio. For the next several months, the band recorded their third studio album. The album was released November 2nd of '99, and in 2000 won the Grammy for Best Rock Album. The first single, Learn to Fly, was released on the 18th of September. The song peaked at number 1 on Canadian and US modern rock charts and won a Grammy for Best Short-Form Music Video, which featured Tenacious D members Jack Black and Kyle Gass, and an airplane spoof. Here's the Foo Fighters, Learn to Fly. Soon after the release of There Is Nothing Left to Lose, Foo Fighters began looking for a new lead guitarist by holding their first audition session. We've never really had an audition. Shiflett was our first audition, and even that was mainly us talking to him about what kind of dude he is, said Grohl in an interview with Oxygen. They landed on Chris Shiflett as their new guitarist, who joined just in time to join up in the tour and support the new album. In March of 2001, Dave and Taylor inducted Queen into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This came up from a friendship with the members of the band that blossomed quickly, and even allowed the men the chance to jump up on stage with their idols from Queen to perform a rendition of Tie Your Mother Down, which featured Dave Grohl on rhythm guitar and vocals, and Taylor Hawkins on drums. One by One, the fourth studio album from the Foo, took the band a stressful 4 months of uncertainty. When recording was finished, no member of the band was quite satisfied with what they had created. It was at this time when the band decided to take a break from their writing, as Dave had committed himself to helping the Queens of the Stone Age record the drums for their album, Songs of the Deaf. With troubles with the Foo Fighters, flow, and friendships, Dave took up the duty of drumming with Queens of the Stone Age for their upcoming tour. Hawkins joined up with Jane's Addiction, and other members became more dedicated or reformed their own side projects. Complications among the band arose fear that the Foo had fought their last fight. However, Grohl reconvened with the band and they drew the conclusion to play Coachella one day before Queens of the Stone Age. After the band played, the talk of re-recording One by One came up. After lots of time, they decided to take another crack at it. In the span of a week, Foo Fighters re-recorded 10 out of 11 of their tracks. The Foo was back. The first single from the album was All My Life. It was released on September 7th, 2002. The album's release was October 22nd, 2002, and their second single, Times Like These, was released in January 20th, 2003. Yet again, the album pulled in awards for the band, winning Grammy for Best Rock Album for a second time, and All My Life being chosen for Best Hard Rock Performance. Though the band acknowledges their success with their singles, everyone had criticism about the album as a whole. A slew of regrets for rushing into the album came from the band, however happy they were about their 4 successful singles. The band toured for another 2 years supporting One by One. At the end of the tour, during presidential election, George Bush used Times Like These in his promotional campaigns. Now the band had agreed not to get into politics, however, none of them were going to re-elect Bush into office. Foo Fighters began touring with John Kerry, the Democratic leader, on his campaign trail to promote him. Grohl mentioned that his experiences touring with the politician inspired him for the 5th album, In Your Honor. However, not all of it. In Your Honor was an album that Dave had written in his basement on his acoustic guitar, mostly on his own time. Dave wanted an acoustic project to be written for the band, however, not including them in the writing process made him feel uneasy. In the end, however, they did record an additional album and included it with In Your Honor, having the acoustic as a second disc. The album was recorded in Dave's personal recording studio, his second one, called 606 Studios West. The first single, Best of You, won a Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal. It also peaked at number 1 on the US modern rock and mainstream rock charts. The success didn't stop there though. The band co-headlined a tour with Weezer to support the new album. The tour was billed as the Foozer Tour, and to support the album's second disc, Dave Grohl and recently re-inducted Pat Smear pursued an acoustic tour to support the album's second disc. The album saw another major success with the single DOA, released September 5th, 2005. In August of 2007, after close to 2 years of non-stop touring and 3.5 months of recording, the band released a single that is arguably one of the most known Foo Fighters songs. The Pretender was released August 21st, 2007, and the song peaked at number 1 on US rock charts for a record of 19 weeks. The album went platinum first week in sales in Australia and New Zealand. However, still in 2011, the album needed over 100,000 sales to be certified platinum in the US. Here it is, Foo Fighters, The Pretender. On the tour supporting the album, the band would sound check with riffs that they had been working on in their spare time and just working on as a group. And at the end of the tour, they had 13 original songs ready to record. Initially, the plan had been to use the songs they had written and record an album to be released in 2009. However, plans were changed and most of the songs got shelved, with the exception of Wheels and Word Forward, which were put onto the Greatest Hits album. Additionally, an early version of Rope, which was the first single off of the most recent Foo Fighters album, was written in these sessions. Here, though, is Wheels. After the tour, the band decided to go on hiatus. Many of the members had families to take care of, and Dave had them cooked Vultures, a band which he had formed with John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin and Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age to tour with. But in late 2010, the band entered Dave's garage in California and started work on their 7th studio album, Wasting Light. However, this time around, they entered the studio with Pat Smear, who hadn't done an album since '94. In February of 2011, the band started touring again just before the release of their single, Rope, which topped American and Canadian rock charts and even earned the band a Deadmau5 remix. Over their touring time, the band had many milestones. The band played a 39-song, 3.5-hour set on March 24th, 2011, released their album in April, headlined Lollapalooza in Chicago, played 2 concerts at the Milton Keynes National Bowl, and performed at the closing ceremonies of BlizzCon 2011, Blizzard Gaming's annual conference. Needless to say, the band has made quite the name for themselves over the past 16 and a half years they have been together. There were ups and downs, but the Foo Fighters have managed to work through their problems, their lives, their side projects, and even stay together for the love of their music. What comes next for the Foo Fighters? Grohl is confident that the band will continue stronger than ever. That's all for Inside the Rock. Tune in next week for Inside the Rock, featuring Coheed and Cambria.